Hey, what is up? I'm your host, Ski Mask Smurfy, aka OG Smurf, and this is the Up Watching the Wire podcast. Thank you for coming back. Or if you're a first time listener, thank you for clicking on this. Wherever you may be finding this podcast, I'm trying to make it available as many places as possible. I'm not everywhere, but I'm a decent amount of wheres. And hey, I try to record this podcast after midnight, keeping with, staying up past midnight to watch a Hawaii game. And, I could have recorded this midday, but sometimes waiting those extra hours pays off because the topic has arisen once again, which we all sort of thought was, well, we didn't think it was dead, but we knew more dominoes would start falling. And the next domino that has fallen is news has come out Friday night around about 7:30, which, hey, if I were to record this at normal time at 6, you wouldn't even got this. But around 7:30, reports came out that UConn and the Big 12 are in talks about expanding the conference. Which, hey, conference realignment, we thought it was done. We thought the money chasing was over, but lo and behold, they keep going and going. And UConn joining the Big 12, we thought West Virginia joining the Big 12 and expanding the conference as wide as it could possibly be was, you know, the maximum as far as it was going to go. But no, no, no. They keep going. They keep going. Conference realignment has been such a, I mean, not a strange topic, but everybody's sort of getting to the point where it's like, hey, this is getting a little bit out of control. Because ACC used to stand for Atlantic Coastal Conference. Now it's the All Coast Conference because the ACC literally has Stanford and Cal, and they're in the same conference as Virginia, North Carolina, and Virginia Tech. That's just that doesn't sound like how this is supposed to work. And I mean, we can see the fallout from some of the stuff happening. I mean, the most big, the most infamous one currently standing right now is the Pac-12 becoming the Pac-2, and everybody decided to jettison for where they wanted to go. Mostly starting off with USC and UCLA saying we're going to the Big Ten, join my Michigan Wolverines. But then next thing you know, it's like, oh, Oregon and Washington want to come too. Then Arizona, Arizona State, Colorado State, we're looking for the Big 12. But now sitting, just holding all the fallout, is Washington State and Oregon State. It's it's really insane because most of the time these conferences are set up so it's like, hey, we want to be geographically close enough to one another where, hey, us being able to travel and play away games in all of our sports aren't really that much of an issue. I mean, let's talk about the Southland Conference. They they market themselves in a very good meme worthy spot and saying, hey, call us the gas tank conference. Because in one weekend, you could actually feasibly go and see each one of these games because they're located close enough to one another. But now things all the way at the top are so spread out because things aren't making sense. Like I said, ACC has West Coast teams. The Big Ten has West Coast teams. The Big 12 has West Virginia. Now they're looking at UConn. That's not making too much sense. I mean, was a good move for the SEC to get Texas and Oklahoma. Well, more so Texas because Texas is a very big football brand. And hey, maybe it's going to sell tickets and boost things up. But things are getting out of hand. The conferences, they feel bloated now. Because if you were to look at the conferences now, it feels like, if I'm going off the top of my head, I believe the SEC is now sitting at 18, the Big Ten sitting at 18, the ACC sitting at 16. That's just so many schools that in a conference together, but some of these schools are rarely going to play one another just because to cycle it all through is just going to take too long. I mean, everyone sort of wants to go back to the way things used to be. I'm not saying the way things used to be was wrong, but it feels like, you know, conferences in the old days at least felt, hey, we know we're going to play all the people who we're near and we're going to fight it out and we're just going to have to make it be what it is. But now it's sort of, hey, we're all chasing money. We just want money on TV and as much money as we can get, that's what we want. And these conferences now are just set up as like, hey, who do we think, if we have matchups, is going to get people to watch on TV and sell tickets for folks to come to games? Because, I mean, I can remember when the Pac 12 was the Pac 8. I mean, I'm not old, but I can remember those days. I mean, the SEC wasn't too crazy, but the SEC was the crazy one who started, hey, we're going to have a conference championship game. And that changed things. I remember the WAC. That was a very good conference. I mean, when I was watching Hawaii and Colt Brennan and Timmy Chang, they were still in the WAC. And I would say, a lot of people say, conference realignment really started in 2010 when the Big Ten decided to take Nebraska out of the Big 12. Then turns around a year later and is like, we're going to pluck Maryland out of the ACC and we're going to pay their fees to leave the conference. A lot of people feel that's where that starts, but I feel this conference realignment, everything started with the decomposition of the WAC. And I would say the decomposition of the WAC started with that 2009 Fiesta Bowl game. If you don't know about the 2009 Fiesta Bowl game, this is back during the BCS era, the Bowl Championship Series. So we all know how that went, but you had the BCS Buster teams, where the teams who weren't part of the power conferences, aka automatic qualifying conferences, some of those schools would come in and they would be great. Two of the most I'm getting that word wrong. Notable schools during that era were TCU and Boise State. I'm pretty sure more of you probably know Boise State, especially for their magical win over Oklahoma and Adrian Peterson with the Statue of Liberty play and the hook and ladder on the last drive. But 2009, you have Boise State coming back from being undefeated in the regular season and losing to TCU in the Poinsettia Bowl. So you got a team that's 12-1. Really, you would consider them 12-0, but they lost the bowl game. Then the team who beat them the season before, who finished 9-2 but became 10-2, and TCU beat them in that Poinsettia Bowl. Both of those teams come back the next season and finish undefeated, and not just undefeated. Boise State is ranked number 4, and TCU is ranked number 3 in the country. Yeah, it sounds insane to you if you're hearing this for the first time. If you're a new college football fan, it sounds insane. Which, I mean, TCU is now in the Big 12, but if you know the history of these teams, it sounds insane. But yeah, number 3, number 4 in the country. And everybody thought, oh, they're going to be ranked that way. So the bowl committee is going to make sure each one of those teams faces a power conference team. But no, they put them against one another in the Fiesta Bowl. So imagine currently, let's say Akron goes undefeated and Appalachian State goes undefeated. Instead of giving them both a chance in the playoff to play against a major school to prove how good they are, they just said, oh, we're just going to make them play one another so they don't actually have to face off against a major program. That's what happened then, and that's what I believe sparked everyone looking to say, hey, this shit ain't going to work for us small schools. They're not going to give us a fair chance. You got to make something happen, which at this time, the conference that we now know as American formerly was the Big East and was a power conference before the breakup of the basketball only schools who didn't have football teams saying, we're going to do our own thing. But at this time, the Big East was sort of winding down and looking weaker. And so Boise State made a move to leave the Western Athletic Conference, aka the WAC, and move along with Nevada to the Mountain West Conference. At this point in time, the Mountain West Conference became extremely packed with talent in terms of football programs. Basically, all the big BCS busters ended up in one conference. You had Boise State, TCU, Nevada, and Utah. Yes, Utah used to be a small program, and you see how they are now. So, if those 4 schools at the top of your conference, it looks pretty strong. And their out of conference record against power conference schools was pretty good. And they were going to threaten to be a power conference. But things only lasted really one season before TCU and Utah felt shaky. And TCU left for the Big 12 and Utah left for the Pac. Utah left for the Pac 10, which became the Pac 2 because Colorado went as well. And so I think conference realignment is just something's going to have to give because these conferences are going to get too big for them to really be competitive, right? Things are going to have to reset themselves because I'm pretty sure, like most people, you may want things back the old way if you're a college football fan. You want old rivalries to still exist and not them trying to make new rivalries. Which the funniest part of this is if UConn is able to join the Big 12, they get to reignite the rivalry they made up called the Civil Conflict, which when UConn joined American and UCF was an American, UConn realized, hey, given how conference realignment shook up during the 2010s, they realized, hey, we don't have any of our rivals here with us. So we're just going to make one up out of thin air, in which they brought a whole trophy to their first game against UCF, which UCF won, and they just left the trophy on the sideline. The team and the school did not care for it. So we're going to see similar stuff happen. Like this, they they're going to keep making up rivalries because, trust me, if you're a college football fan, answer me this. Are Texas and South Carolina rivals? I mean this seriously. Are those two teams rivals in any sport, especially college football? Go look up the fact that they have a rivalry. Then look up how many times they played each other. And that's how I'm going to end this episode. I rest my case. You come back here, realize conference realignment is going to get so wacky that nothing's going to make sense. Schedules are going to be all over the place, as we've seen with Iowa and Rutgers in the Big Ten. Things things are getting weird, and they're going to keep getting weirder to the point that they break. Which hopefully they don't fully break that college football stops, but I think things got to take a good reset. And hey, that's all I got to say about this topic. If UConn joins the Big 12, they're going to be competing with the ACC to see who has the widest spread in the conference. That's how I'm going to end this episode. I'm Ski Master Murphy, aka OG Smurf 826. I appreciate you coming and listening to this podcast I created, the Watching the YA podcast. And if you're still here, thank you. Keep listening. I appreciate you.